Hi everybody, welcome to this video walkthrough. Today I'm going to walk you through this Cambridge IELTS 6 test 1. So we have multiple charts in task 1 and we have an agree-disagree essay for writing task 2. Okay, so before we jump in, let me just quickly explain why I decided to start this series where I share my planning for each and every single task from Cambridge 6 to Cambridge 17. Um, well, I believe that instead of me teaching you a particular writing skill and whatnot, um, I think it's better if I teach you something actually practical, something that you can put into use on your own. All right. But it's not like I'm just gonna explain this task and I'm gonna be done with it. No. I will probably like thoroughly explain each task and then write my plan for you. All right. And why is planning important? Well, there are a lot of reasons why that's the case, but I think the main reason why planning should be your priority is that a lot of the time students end up producing a response that is irrelevant to the actual task. So, for example, um, the reason why some students get a lower score for their task response or achievement is because they don't spend enough time analyzing the question at hand, and they just rush into writing the whole thing. And eventually, what happens is that they just end up writing something totally irrelevant, which is something that you don't want, do you? So that's why, right? To avoid the risk of ending up writing something totally irrelevant, we do a lot of planning, and I'm gonna show you how it's done, and then I'm gonna share with you my sample answers on my Telegram channel, so you can go to the link below and then analyze my sample answer, right? I mean, I first thought maybe I should write a response on the spot, right? As you guys are watching me. But then I thought to myself, well, my subscribers may get a little bored as they watch me write the whole essay, and that would probably do little good. So how about instead I let them analyze the essays for themselves. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And in these videos, right, for the next videos, what I plan on doing is briefly explain each and every single task at hand, and write a plan for it, and then share my sample answer. But before I again jump in, let me just quickly tell you the steps that I take to write any essay. And guys, I am not a big believer in preparing for questions based on the question types, right? I mean, there's no such thing as question type for one thing. But people seem to, you know, uh, like it that way, right? Have question types in that way and prepare for writing depending on the types of questions. But it's only done so that the teacher can help you master the lesson in the best way possible. So it's just good for me, right? If I decide to teach you something based on the question types, but when in reality, it's there's no such thing as question types, right? So it's all about thinking, and writing and editing. So what does it mean? Let me just make it a little bigger. So you know, without thinking, if you don't think before you write, you're gonna, like I said, end up writing something uh weak, right? I mean, even if you write something relevant to the task, you will still not have enough ideas, or you will have enough ideas, but you'll not be able to prove those ideas. So that's why thinking is important, and it helps us write better. So I usually spend on task one around like 5 minutes, right? Uh, for task one, and then around 10 to 15 minutes sometimes, right? 10 minutes for task two to think. I think about it like, and when I say think, I mean plan, analyze the question, and everything, right? And then it probably takes me like 10 minutes to finish a task one report. I mean, I don't always do that, but this is the standard that I want to reach every time I write a task one essay. And then again, I probably spend like 15 minutes, right? So um, for task two, and you might be wondering, wow, 10, 15 minutes just to write something. Well, I'll tell you what, as long as you plan holistically, right? Like if as long as your plan is thorough, it will not take you even 10 minutes to write, you know. And then I want to spend a lot of time editing because editing is the most important part of writing. I mean, yeah, probably like just as important as these two, right? As the other two. But when you edit, right, if you don't, for example, whether or not you edit sort of like marks the difference between a band 7 essay and a 7.5 essay or even a band 8 essay. Sometimes band 7 students write a band 7 essay, right? When in reality, if they do a lot of editing, if they spend enough time proofreading their essays and fixing the mistakes, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to, you know, score even an 8. That's the problem. I mean, I personally didn't have enough time to edit on my last exam, which is why I ended up with 7.5. If I had enough time, then I would have probably scored 8. But again, I don't really want to brag or anything. It's just the way it is. And then I want to make sure that I spend like 5 minutes for task one to edit, right? And then like around 15 minutes, that leaves me with 15 minutes for task two because I may change a lot of ideas and arguments and things of that sort. Now, okay, so what do I do then in the thinking process? So let's start with this task one. All right, so the step one is to notice the details, right? So I notice certain details. And to do that, I read the question rubric, all right? So this is what we call a rubric. The graph and table below give information about water use worldwide and water consumption in two different countries. All right, so it's a line graph and a table. All right, and it shows water usage. All right, so global water use by sectors. Right, the line graph shows that like by different sectors like agriculture, industrial use, domestic use, and then water consumption in two different countries, and the comparison of water consumption uh, in Brazil and Congo. Okay, and it's in 2000 or in the year 2000 in this particular one. All right. So okay, so this way I sort of tap into the task, sort of like enable my thinking skills and everything, right? So I sort of um like get into gear as I do this exercise. I sort of understand the task, but I try to connect with it. So that's what matters, especially with task one. I want to pay special attention to task one, and we will come to a lot like maps and diagrams because most students seem to ignore those question types, but they are actually important for a lot of reasons. For one thing, it's kind of hard to explain the key features, right? So it's kind of hard to highlight the key features that come from them. And another reason is that overviews are usually written incorrectly for those tasks. So I want to really talk about those as well. But while we're on the subject of from like overviews and key features, let me tell you what key features are, like according to the band descriptors. So if there were two things that I would, well, actually, there are three things that are required of you to score band 7. So the first thing is, okay, so let me just say band 7 plus requirements. Um, the most important thing of all is having a clear overview. If you don't have a clear overview, then that means you didn't understand the task well. And if you don't understand the task well, then that means like you'll not be able to write a quality essay. So clear overview, we're going to talk about how to write a clear overview, all right? So you guys will also analyze my sample answer. This way, you get an understanding of what a clear overview looks like. Um, and then another requirement is key features, highlighting uh, key features, all right? And a lot of people don't understand what key features are, which is why, after closer scrutiny, I realized that your like your task one score is usually lower than your task two score on the real exam. And it's not because task one is difficult, but because task one is not the kind of um, task one involves the kind of skills that we don't get to practice on a daily basis. Think about it. When was the last time you had to analyze a report, and report it back to someone, someone who's like, let's say, in an academic setting, in a formal setting? Unless, of course, you are an economist or something, you probably have never done that, right? You've probably never done that in your life. Um, but when it comes to task two requires the skills, right? It kind of tests the skills that you use on a daily basis. And of course, like, you may not be using, like, talking about advertisement and stuff, but the kind of skills that you need to showcase in task two, you always use them on your day-to-day life, right? In your day-to-day life. So what do I mean by that? We argue, right? Humans are inherently argumentative creatures, right? So we are defensive and we put forward ideas, we put forward some arguments, right? When we are, let's say, arguing with friends, not even arguing, let's say talking with others, we just, want to convince them that we are correct, right? So we are good at convincing. We want to do this and that. So we do that pretty much every day. Doesn't matter in what language you do it, but you still practice those skills. We practice the skill of convincing others, persuading others, right? And you do that with such a subtle, art, right? Style, so to speak, right? I mean, in a way that you yourself don't notice. So we spend a lot of time arguing and defending our arguments, and then, like, proving that our ideas are correct, right? We are human beings after all. And we definitely practice the skills required from task two, which is why it's easier to score higher for task two, all right? But a lot of people overlook task one. But in this video, right, in this video series, we will not do that. Instead, we'll place a bigger emphasis on task one. Now, and the final thing is logical grouping. So grouping the information in the sense that putting the piece of information in the correct paragraphs. Like, why did you um, write this and that in detail paragraph one? Why didn't you write it in detail paragraph two, right? And why do you have three detailed paragraphs? Why not two? Why not one? So this is what we call logical grouping. If there is a logic behind your behind the way you paragraph, right? Like, split the information into two paragraphs or maybe three paragraphs, then if there is a logic behind them, then the chances are you will score band 7 plus. And it also, of course, is a matter of language, but we'll not really focus on language as much as we focus on task response, task achievement for task one, right, and coherence and cohesion, because these are the skills that you can't quite develop on your own. All right. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into the step two. Step two is key features, identifying the key features. Now, again, a lot of people don't understand, like I said, what key features are. Now, let me already clear it up for you. So, key features are okay. So, if okay, how do I put this? It's kind of hard to explain as well. So, a key feature something that decides whether or not, listen carefully, key feature is something that decides whether or not the piece of information you see on this chart is uh, worthy of being written down, right? Whether or not you can write it down, whether or not it's important enough to be written down. Let me give you an example. So something that is not a key feature would probably look something like this. Agriculture used, let's say, I don't know, 2000 2000 uh like kilometer, I think, like, to the power of 3. I don't know how it's like cube, like, no, yeah, um square cube, I think, yeah, cube. I don't know how to read it though. Um, Agriculture used something, right? 2,000 kilometers to the cube. I don't again. Um, Water, right? So this right here is not a key feature because it's not important. But the band descriptors make it clear. You need to highlight key features. So the uh, highlight of that would be, reporting a key feature would be like this: agriculture, or um, let's say the highest amount of water was used for agriculture. Um, right? In or throughout the whole period. Right? So this is a key feature. You could also you know, add some details to it, but this is just an example of what key features are. So as you can see now, this is just statistics, right? This is just a piece of information. It's not important. I mean, why is it not important? Because the writer is not explaining why it's important. But when you explain why you gave the information, why do we have this information? Because it's the highest, right? So okay, basically, if I were to dumb it down even further, key features would be the reason why you're adding that information, the logic behind you choosing that particular information. So we're gonna highlight those pieces of information right now. So what are the key features? What do you see? So basically, with in this particular type of charts, you usually have key features that are like highest and lowest. And again, don't just think that we just need to write highest and lowest. No, not just highest and lowest. Highest and lowest is one of the key features. So the trend, right? The trends, like whether they increased or decreased, and like we included lowest and remained the same. All right, so they something that remained the same. Similarities, right? So we could probably say similarities. For example, let's say domestic use and you know industrial use. They probably were the same until 1960. You see, this is a key feature, or until 1940. So this is a key feature. Why? Because it's remained the same, right? So if you're able to use as many key features as possible, in fact, you're supposed to use all the key features. There's got to be a reason behind all of your sentences, right? If you're able to showcase that, then the chances are you'll get a, band 9 for task achievement. Believe me, as long as you have a clear overview and your logic and your grouping is logical, and it's done that to the highest level, like fully extended. When is it fully extended? When you give some comments that are actually well, let's say relevant and make a lot of sense, right? So okay, and what else? How about this? I think, yeah, remain the same, similarities, and for this particular type of task one, you have comparison. Comparison. So you have to be able to compare the country population and stuff, right? Now let's get into it. Let's get into the details. Now, what are the highest and lowest for line graph? For the line graph, let's try to do that now. So as you can see, this is one key feature because it's like increasing, right? One key feature is that upward trend for agriculture, and another, or how about we do this? Agriculture, and then we will list the key features, all the key features. Agriculture represented an upward trend, right? It just increased the whole time, and also it was the highest, all right? What like it probably used the highest, the most water, right? And then how about industrial use? And pay attention to the gap. I think gap, it's also comparison. So it's like 500 uh point increase. How about in this? I mean, yeah, 500 uh what kilometer difference. How about here? Now I think it's like this is like 1,000, and this is probably close to, yes, as you can see, the gap increased as well, right? Um as the agriculture and other points increase. So we could say that agriculture uh saw a significant increase, right? Um so its increase is significant because now there is a 2,000 point difference. How about industrial use? Uh, in this, okay, industry, I think. So now it's like, all right, here it's seen what? Oh my God, like it's just like really messy. Here until from 1990, 1900 to 1940, it was what? Remained the same, and only then, okay, so then the increase was not really, steep, right? It was like gradual and then gradual increase from, okay, 19 probably 50 to, okay, um 2000s, right? How about domestic use? um it also remained the same. So you see again another key feature just cropped up. This is a similarity, so it's like comparison. We could compare it later. Remained the same, and then it also saw well, um, negligible increase, right? Okay. And remember, guys, I'm not writing anything negligible. I'm not writing anything just yet, all right? So I'm just sort of planning everything. How about this one? Water consumption in Brazil and Congo. So this table shows us the consumption of water, okay, across two countries in terms of population, irrigated land, and water consumption per person. Now, obviously, Brazil had the upper hand here, like it was the leader. So I think it was the highest, right, in terms of everything, because if it has more population, then the logic is, right, it will have more irrigated land because they need to feed the population. And water consumption per person, however, it was like also like a lot, right? It was highest across all well, items, I'd say. Now, and we need to also compare. So pay attention to the difference. So the difference between this and that is like, I don't know. Let's divide 176 by 5 million. So it would be like almost how much? I'm really bad at math, guys. So it's like 5 goes into 17 three times. Two. Yeah, it's like three. Okay, it's like 35 times, like 35 times. It's like 35 times bigger. How about this one? It's like 26, right? If I'm not mistaken. If it's like 26,000, so you need to, multiply 100 by 26, right? To get 26, or am I wrong? Like 206. Okay, so it's like the difference is that like big. How about this? It's okay, so like 40. If you, I mean, you guys don't get, by the way, confused why I'm doing this. I just like to have fun, probably do some math with it just to get the idea if there's any, pattern right there, right? So for now, there's no pattern. So it's like 40. All right. So what we can see is that, I mean, after doing this calculation, um, the difference, right, between the two was like way, okay, so I think we could mention that comparison. Um, all right, so the comparison here is that Brazil, uh, okay, outperformed. Well, I'm using it just for the sake of this plan. Democratic Congo by significant amount. Okay, so it's like really big. Um, Okay, I guess that's it. Now, what we need to do here is step two is done. Step three is well, before that, we need to also write our overview, right? I'm not gonna write anything for the overview, but for now, I mean, you don't have to write the overview in the planning part, but you just have to come up with what you would probably mention, right? What you would probably include in your overview. Now, what you need to include is the summary of all these key features, okay? It's like the summary of the key features. Just You don't have to mention any details and stuff. Um, I recommend you check out my overview later on. Okay. So and then you will see how it's actually written. But until then, you need to also know what to include in your overview because a lot of people don't know what makes an overview clear. What makes an overview clear is um, the summary of these key points. Okay, so is the summary like just mentioning giving the general or let's say the bigger picture of what this is, right? So I think in our overview, what we would mention is so what we would mention is probably how um look at this like from a bigger or let's say from a different angle. What do all these lines have in common? They all increase, you see. Some significantly, others, again, I'm not writing anything, it's just a plan. Others, um let's say gradually. Again, don't mind the language. We'll definitely not repeat this. So we could probably mention agriculture quickly, how it was the highest, because industrial use and domestic use, they were like pretty close to one another, while agriculture, the wide between the two was pretty, the gap between the two was pretty wide, I think, yes, we could mention that. Um, like we could build up on this point, agriculture um, versus industrial and domestic. Um, okay, now how about this? Brazil. Um, okay, let's see. Um, Brazil had the highest, right? Um, we could say um, in terms of population, irrigated land, water consumption per person, had the highest figures, right? So, like, yeah, I think that should be it, right? So it the figures for Brazil dwarf those of Congo in the sense that like they were really huge, right? So I mean the figures were pretty high. So that's what we could say. You see, we're sort of like yeah, summarizing the key features. That's how you write an overview. Now we have 3 points, right? Overall, really nice general points, and we need to be able to organize them as well. So I think it's important that that your overview reflects your body paragraph, right? So that's how we're gonna. Now it's time for step 3 is grouping. All right. So when we're grouping, it's important that it sort of reflects your overview. So I think our overview is great in the sense that we can already do that, right? So all increase, some significantly, others gradually. Agriculture versus industry and domestic. So because we mentioned how the line between industrial use and agricultural use and domestic use, because we already mentioned that, now we already sort of gave the key feature, all right? And in the body paragraph, we can just write about agriculture. Well, not separately because it's like there are two, charts here. But first, write about agriculture and then industrial use and domestic use. Like sort of, we already set the stage for our detailed paragraph number 1, where we'll first mention agriculture because grouping within the body paragraph is also important. All right, so in our body paragraph, we will write about how agriculture versus right industry and domestic use. Now, when we group, now it's really easy to group logically because in one paragraph we'll write about the line graph and in the other we'll write about the table. But sometimes it's really difficult because you'll be given one chart, let's say bar chart, and in that case it's really hard to pick the necessary piece of information and then put them logically in two different paragraphs. Here we are lucky because we'll have a good score for coherence and cohesion, whether we want it or not, because it's just obviously given there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we will not mess it up. It's important that you know how to group the information even within the paragraph, not within the whole essay, but within the paragraph. Knowing what to write first. For example, if we wrote about industrial and domestic use at first, it would probably not make sense because then that wouldn't be logical, as we didn't do it in the same way in the overview, right? It would be just a mess. And then more than that, it would probably not make any sense, just think about it. Okay, and then detailed paragraph two, we'll write about how Brazil, uh, okay, so outperformed, or let's say, yeah, outperformed. And again, I don't want to use this word. Let's say Brazil dwarfed uh, Congo. I mean, this is going to be my logical reasoning behind each, I mean, there's going to be central topic for each and every single detailed paragraph as well, even in task one, yes. So we're going to include, you know, when we write about Brazil and Congo, we need to bear this in mind, right? So how Brazil dwarfed Congo in terms of its population and irrigation land and water consumption per person. So that's how it's going to be. And then I think what you need to do is go to my Telegram channel and then analyze the sample answer that I will have written by the time I upload this video. All right. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in task one. Actually, task two.